Varun and Kristiina are our special guests today because we're going to be talking about international business and, of course, international business for digital nomads and location independent people always mentions Estonia. And I've had a look at Estonia about a year ago, and there's so many developments that I thought I would invite Varun back. He was on the webinar earlier and ask him about all the new information. And Kristiina is actually in Estonia and works for one of the agencies that helps international people set up a business there. So very happy that you're both in this call to answer any questions that people may have. So feel free to ask your questions in the chat. I've also received some questions beforehand. But before we start asking questions and introducing the two of you, let me just share the situation that most people are in. When I got kicked out of the Netherlands, I had a company in the Netherlands and I had to find quickly a solution to register a company so I could keep on doing business. And when you're not registered anywhere, that's kind of difficult. And I spent a lot of time in the Caribbean. I'm also in Curacao right now in the Caribbean. And one of my friends has a trust office, so she referred me to the British Virgin Islands and I set up a company there. But the British Virgin Islands and the Cayman Islands and Hong Kong and many other of these famous offshore places have a bit of a dodgy name sometimes. You know, when a tax office hears about the BVI, they're all like, oh, you're trying to dodge taxes. And of course, in my case, I can prove that's not the case and everything is transparent. And I try to actually find a solution with the tax people. But for a lot of other people, if they have a choice where to set up a company outside of the Netherlands, I always tell them that nowadays Estonia is very interesting because it's created for people with an international life. So again, I cannot say this often enough, this setup is not for people who want to evade taxes. It's not when you live in the Netherlands or in Germany or wherever and you think, oh, I just set up a company in Estonia or wherever and I don't have to pay taxes because the tax services are quite smart. That's not the idea. The idea is if you have an international life, if you live in different countries, do business in different countries, have clients in different countries, then you need a company set up that's also international and that can deal with these things. And for example, the British Virgin Islands or Curacao that also has an offshore business, you always have to come into an office, send things by mail. It's almost prehistoric. And Estonia, if I understand correctly, but I'm going to ask you to explain in a minute, set everything up from scratch only a few years ago. And they were thinking, how can we do it most efficient? That resulted in a very digital, modern, easy to use, non-bureaucratic system. And we as digital nomads, of course, always like non-bureaucratic. So having said that, Varun, can you share a little bit about who you are? Also people who haven't met you yet, what you used to do and what you do now.
Sure. Thank you for that introduction, Esther. So yeah, I used to actually work for the e-Residency program until last year. I was the first head of partnerships for e-Residency. So my responsibility included managing all the service providers, working on options that could provide better business banking to e-residents, working on other services, whether it would be something like digital nomad insurance partnerships, or it could be anything that would, in essence, help people who are location independently managing their company in Estonia get more access to better services and as a result improve their experience managing the business remotely.
Why would Estonia do that? Why do other countries not do that? And why is Estonia so committed?
So it kind of happened by default because Estonia has the world's most advanced e-governance platform. It's the only country that votes on the internet for national elections. right? There's over 5,000 different e-services, starting from e-law, e-police, declaration of taxes online. And this already started in the late 90s in Estonia. So the first e-service that was developed in the late 90s was tax filings online. And as a result, over time, many more services were added, and still today there are more services that are added constantly for better access online. I think the last one that was done was e-notary. So you can actually notarize everything digitally, and it's much easier. So as a result, there was this platform, citizens and residents in Estonia could use it while they were in Estonia, and they could obviously also access all these services even while they were traveling. So it was very convenient for people who were residing in Estonia or who were citizens, because they had a digital ID card, or a mobile ID actually for citizens here. And they could, very easily digitally sign documents, declare their taxes, sign legal agreements, declare their board decisions, and do all of that. So the government.
What you're saying now is one of the biggest confusions that's often about the program, because it's called e-Residency.
Yes.
And residents of Estonia have access to all these services, but yes, when you become a member of the e-Residency program, you do not become a resident of Estonia, correct?
No, so e-Residency means that you can have entrepreneurial residency. So you can actually set up your business in Estonia and run it. And in some cases, this might lead to physical residency, but there is no direct correlation. How that might lead to, let's say, physical residency is if you have a company, maybe at some point you decide you'd also like to explore the Estonian business environment internally. And you would like to maybe hire some people, or you might want to, get some clients, or work with Estonian tech developers who are very well known around the world. Then, you might actually want to travel to Estonia, so you might need a visa. You come here, maybe you like the place and you want to stay here. So that can all lead to, but this is the very first step in any case, but it doesn't have to. There's over, I think, close to 67,000 e-residents now from over 170 countries.
7,000, wow.
Yes. So,
and those are all people who run their company digitally in Estonia without living there. They're either a resident of another country, or they're not a resident of any country like me. And yes, still they have the benefits of a digital platform where they can do all their business.
Exactly. And so just to give you an idea, the way the program is run is through a partnership between the public sector. So that's the e-governance services, etc., that are available. People who aren't used to using them will still find them a bit complicated to understand. So as a result, what we did is we partnered up with private sector organizations. And that's why Kristiina is also here. She's from One Office, which is one of the top service providers, so that they can educate people on how the program works, and at the same time help them with things like bookkeeping, accounting, getting a virtual office address, receiving their mail because their company is registered in Estonia. So it works exactly like a normal company would. And there is no difference, by the way, between an Estonian company that is run by someone who lives here or who is a citizen, and that company that is run by an e-resident, right? So there's
so to make it easier because it's not just registering a company, then you have to do your accounting and your taxes, and there's some rules. So it's good, or maybe essential, to have a local partner to help you with that, because as entrepreneurs we don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? So we do what we have to do, and then all the back office stuff we would like to outsource. And Kristiina's company, One Office, is one of the service providers that is active in doing that, and you have worked with a lot of them, and you specifically like One Office for a reason, probably.
Yes. So the reason why I like One Office, well, there's a few reasons, but I'll just kind of list them. Firstly, One Office was involved in the creation of the residency program itself. So as a company, They existed even before e-Residency started, and they were actually part of the group that kind of brought e-Residency together as a private sector contributor at that point, right? So they already have enough experience, and for me that raises the credibility, especially when an Estonia-based company is dealing with e-residents from, I don't know, 170 countries, right? That's one reason. They also have 6 offices across Europe, so it's easy, you know, different jurisdictions, maybe some people need some local advice, so, you know, it's a bit easier. And besides that, the biggest reason is because out of all the service providers, so there's different service providers that focus on certain specific type of clients. Someone might work only with a single shareholder company. Someone might only work with people who are in the services space. So if you're doing anything with physical products or you have very large volumes, they would not want to deal with you. But with one office, they're open to all different categories of e-residents. So it doesn't matter if you're an e-commerce seller, you're a drop shipper, you're you know, a digital nomad or location independent entrepreneur who's working on coaching like you do, Esther. So I think, you know, they bring the whole spectrum of different businesses together, and it's still one place, and so all the services are available in one place. That's good.
And they're nice people. That also helps.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
I like to work with nice people, you know. I'm not in business for business, but for the, you know, the connections you make, and you know, it's not business like. The business is a consequence of having good relationships.
And that's very true. So the one thing that I always say is, work as an e-resident. When you work with a service provider, it's something like when you have a relationship with a bank, wherever you might live, right? So that banking institution or your customer sales representative stays part of your journey, you know, throughout your.
I don't know what your experience is with banks, but most of us don't have very good experiences with banks. So I would compare it maybe to a good bank then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with my bank here. So for me, it's been really good. And I also use some fintech solutions because now after e-Residency, I also have my own company, and I also travel, you know, quite often. So I'm kind of a location independent entrepreneur. My base is still in Estonia, but I stay here 6 to 8 months, and the rest of the time I'm traveling.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So I also started using a lot of fintech solutions like TransferWise and Payoneer. We're also partners of the residency program and of one.
So the banking is, you have the traditional banking, the traditional banks, and then there's a lot of new banking solutions. And I heard that when you start a company in Estonia, you can also use those new banking solutions. So you don't have to actually go into a bank and get an account and things like that. But,
yes,
but
exactly.
let's get to that a little bit later. Let's go back to the bigger picture. For whom it's interesting to get a company in Estonia. You said it's interesting when you do coaching or any online services like I do. One of the people watching right now, she wants to import physical products from Canada, USA to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Would a company in Estonia be a setup that's suitable for her? Or what are the criteria or the questions you ask to see if it's suitable?
Absolutely. I can answer that question, but I think maybe Kristiina can already say, because she is in touch with the clients directly, and I'm quite sure we have customers like this, e-residents like this, sorry, who are already doing this. So, Kristiina, maybe you could answer this question.
Yeah, I can take this question. So it's very simple. Anybody doing any legal business can use Estonian company to do the business, either in Europe, in some other parts of the world, worldwide. So there are no restrictions on who can have Estonian company and which kind of business you can do it. There are some, let's say, shady fields of activities like cryptocurrency, but this is because it's so under-regulated. And the new regulations are starting to appear, and it's kind of like a financial service. So whoever starts that business, they have to invest a lot of time and also money to draft the contracts, to get licenses in accordance to the legislation and so on. But selling physical products is It's something that our clients do. They use Amazon. They import their goods from Asia, from America to Europe, and sell over Amazon or other e-commerce marketplaces or e-shops. So that there are so many different setups that you can do. Anything that is really straightforward, in a sense that everybody understands what the business is about. This is suitable for the Estonian company.
And if it gets complicated, then you know, they have to contact you to see if there is a workaround. But I think most of the people watching have a very straightforward business. The only thing that makes it complicated is that it's in different countries. So it's not, I live in Holland, my clients are in Holland, and my services are in Holland. We have people who do business all over the world, who live all over the world. And that's why the current system, like the Dutch tax service and the Dutch government, gets so confused.
And it's not only the Dutch government getting confused, it's all governments getting confused, and tax offices. So they are not used to the new way of life where one person is not related to one place. That I was born in Estonia, I live here for the whole life. And I don't want to explore abroad. So they are not used to that. They want you to have some specific place of interest and not to mix and mingle with other international locations. So they are confused.
And that's actually also what helps if you have a company in Estonia. It's a European country, you get an IBAN bank code, it's legitimate. So then tax offices and governments know that you have a legitimate company in Europe with a normal IBAN number that they can recognize. And it becomes more understandable for them. So it's also just the fact that you choose one location and put your business there and do your business from there. It helps the system to fill in one of the blanks they want to have filled in. Mm-hmm. But I know that a lot of people, like I said, some people want to set up an international company to evade taxes. And of course, we don't want to get into that, because if you live in the Netherlands, you have clients in the Netherlands, you send your invoices from Estonia, then the Dutch tax service will say, listen, you have to pay taxes, probably. But if you're just starting your international life, or you already have an international life and you can show that you do business in different countries, have clients in different countries, producers, service providers, then it's a very legitimate case that your business is in Estonia.
Absolutely.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a very specific example. So the example that you mentioned for, when you're importing products from let's say the US and Canada into Europe using an Estonian company, right? That yes. was, yeah, right. So let's imagine you're doing that and you get access to banking with a fintech solution like Payoneer, which is one of the largest fintechs in the world. And with that, now that you're also trading in the US and Canada, you can also get local banking details, even for your Estonian company in the US and Canada. You can receive revenues, make payments in Canadian dollars or US dollars, or even if it's in China, or even if it's in, I don't know, let's say Australia, and you can trade in all those currencies. You can order a bank card for each of those locations, or each of those currencies, let's say, and you can use that, and it'll still cost you much less than a normal bank would cost you, especially when you start dealing with foreign currencies. So that's something that already starts to save you money. Obviously, since you are doing everything digitally, it already is saving you time. You don't need to go to the tax office or do some kind of import declaration, etc., because everything in Estonia can be done digitally. You can get a VAT number either in Estonia, or even your Estonian company, since it is still the EU, can get a VAT number. Let's just take an example of the Netherlands. So an Estonian company could get a VAT number in the Netherlands and could start importing products, exporting products, and everything could work really easily. The only difference is it's just easier, right? Coming to the part about the taxation, Esther, that you were just mentioning.
That's the question most people have, yes.
Exactly. So taxation in Estonia also works quite, it's quite straightforward and simple. There is no tax on reinvested profits or undistributed income for companies which are considered corporate residents of Estonia, right? Now, this corporate residency part is the only part that you have to figure out initially with your business plan. Like you were rightly mentioning, and I'm sure Kristiina will agree, it depends on where all your customers are, what is your principal place of activity, where is the general management board based. So it's a combination of all these things. And the easiest way to figure this out when you're starting your Estonian company is wherever you are based, go to a tax advisor who's local, but who knows how international taxation works. So not just someone who knows how taxation, for example, works in the Netherlands. That will not help you. Someone who understands on how taxation works in the world, but from a Dutch perspective. Tell them what you're planning. Tell them I would like my company to be based in Estonia because I can manage it digitally. And they'll be able to explain to you.
No, they have no idea. That's the problem. Even people who say they've studied this, they have no idea. So that's why we are trying to become experts ourselves. So let's take a very specific example.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm from the Netherlands, and a lot of people watching are from the Netherlands, but I'm traveling around and I don't have a fixed address in the Netherlands anymore. Yes. But I have clients from the Netherlands and from other countries that visit, for example, my writing retreat in Curacao right now.
Yes.
So the service takes place in Curacao. Yes. I send an invoice to my Dutch clients, yes. But the activity takes place outside of Europe. So I charge them, a fee without VAT because the service is outside of Europe. And so the money goes into my company. Let's assume it's an Estonian company, which it isn't right now, but let's assume it's an Estonian company. So let's say I earn 100,000 euros in my Estonian company. As I understand it correctly, that is not taxed until I take it out as a dividend. If it stays in my company, there's no tax. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And
then
also
I pay my flight ticket to Curacao, I book my hotel in Curacao, I rent a car, whatever, all that I take from my company because my company pays for it and there's no tax paying.
Yes, because those are business expenses.
Right. And if I want to fly business class, that's up to me, right?
That's your decision.
And if I want to eat in a restaurant, that's up to me.
It is.
Well,
yes. This is the point where Kristiina comes in because there's some.
I want to get it very clear because these are questions that everybody has. Thanks, yes. Kristiina.
So the company can have any expenses that are related to business. These are business costs, so it makes sense to make these business costs. And usually these are like flights, accommodation, and so on. When we speak about restaurants and food, then no personal food items should be included.
Of course, I only eat with clients. Even if I eat with friends, they're potential clients.
And here's one catch that is not very beneficial in Estonia is that in Estonia, the lunches or restaurant bills for entertaining guests, there is a limit and the limit is really small. It's only 32 euros per month. So anything going above that will be taxed. It is kind of like very, very funny that they haven't, it was set like, I guess 20 years ago or something like that, but the times have evolved. People do have business lunches, which don't cost only 32 euros per month, but they haven't updated or amended this limitation. So we might have some little limitations, but again, the accountant or the bookkeeper is your friend who actually helps you to go through all the regulations and what are the do's and don'ts. For instance, for our clients, we do have the accounting in a nutshell kind of document saying what you can do, what you can't do. And the accountant also has the first meeting, Skype meeting, or if the client is here face-to-face, to go over what are your business needs. If you say that, oh, I have so many clients who want to, and I need to have a dinner parties with them and lunches, then this is up to the accountant to figure out how to put it in the accounting in the most efficient way. Not to say that we avoid or evade or something like that. It's just
no, but there's a difference between entertaining and, for example, for my workshop, I need to get catering. So during the workshop, the writers will have lunch. Or, for example, one of the participants organizes fruit festivals, and maybe she needs to buy large quantities of fruit to supply the festival. And that's different than entertaining guests.
Exactly. So catering is also the cost of throwing the event. Buying the fruits for sales purpose is also a different thing. So there are different. There's one item, food, and there can be like 3 or 4 different aspects that you take it into accounting.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add there, you know, the same rules apply to me right now. Just wanted to also make one thing clear. This rule applies to small companies, which is what all of us are running. Small companies in the sense, I don't think there's going to be like 400 employees, you know, because as the companies get bigger, beyond a certain size, then these rules change a little bit. So if you're an employee of a large company, which has, I don't know, 100, 200 employees, then it doesn't mean that you're only allowed 32 euros of food allowance a month.
Yeah, but we're not there yet. Maybe in another year, all of us will have 100 employees, but for now, we're all small.
I just wanted to, just wanted to make that point. And the other thing which is important is, if you are, for example, doing a catering event, right? So
sorry,
you can ask
the audio went a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're back.
Okay, so if you're doing a catering event, right? Now that's a work-related event, clearly. All you have to do is ask the catering company to issue you a service invoice or whatever service they're providing you.
And not food, but for services, yeah.
Exactly. And in this case, you can just pay it directly from your company's account, make them a transfer, and that's it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This is a business expense. That's fine.
And even
if you're
to
doing
get back to the taxes, even if you spend 1,000 euros a month on food, lunches, dinners, and you have to pay tax on that, that's only 25%, right?
No, it's 20%.
20% even. So we're not talking about a big amount, because in the Netherlands, I think if you have lunch with a client.
I just want to clarify. Actually, Kristiina was just saying the same thing. I think there's, just want to clarify. So you're talking about what invoice? You're talking about the invoice that you have to pay to the other company?
No, I'm saying if there's like 100,000 euros in my company account, and I want to spend that in expenses. So I buy my airline tickets, I book my Airbnbs, I pay my restaurant bills. And if the government doesn't agree that a restaurant bill is an expense, then I will be taxed 20%, which is still not a lot.
Yeah, not exactly. So let me just explain this.
Sorry to go so much into detail, but I think this is one of the things that a lot of people will ask, because a lot of digital nomads, their life is traveling. So
exactly, and the easiest way to kind of not create confusion. So this is more of an administrative thing, and I've learned it myself since I've been doing the same thing. So when I travel, I normally pay for my food from my personal account, in which I have money, not from my company card. And whenever I pay with my personal account, I take all my food invoices, I give it to my accountant, and I tell her, figure out what is a business expense and what's personal. So this way, administratively, I spent money first, and now my company would reimburse me for it, right? So when she tells me like, okay, Varun, you can declare, I don't know, 50 euros of the invoice. So I pay myself 50 euros and she does the declaration.
Okay. And I've also heard that when you're traveling, you can spend 100 euro per day.
No, I just want to finish one point about the same thing, which is important, I think. If you are in the EU, right? And let's imagine that you're organizing an event in Spain, where they add, I'd forgotten how much it is, but I think it's about 21% VAT. So the person who's giving you the invoice will invoice you 21% VAT over whatever price they're giving you, right? So how it works is in the EU, which I'm guessing few people know already, is when your Estonian companies pays for that invoice, your Estonian company will pay the full amount, including VAT, but the VAT will come back to your company, right? Because it's in the EU. So as an EU company for business services from one to another, you don't pay any value-added tax. If it's in Curacao, it's outside the EU, then so if you're paying any tax on top of whatever you are, even as a business, you will still pay that tax. In any case, you would have paid that tax even if you were paying it as an individual. But just wanted to say that you can start saving this 20%, and it can amount to quite a bit of money, even on your flights, because you're booking them in the EU from a travel agency. So yeah, I save a lot of money on just this.
And your accountant will get the VAT back on the European bills, or you have to per country put them together and then make a request or something? How does that work?
Well, actually, it works so that the companies can use reverse charge on invoices. Reverse charge means 0%. If the EU invoicing company has the EU VAT number, and if the Estonian company has the EU VAT number, then you can use it, and then actually no VAT is traveling between the client and the supplier. And of course, if you do have to pay the VAT in other country, you can claim it back from the other country's tax office. Usually it takes they say that you have 9 months to make a claim for the previous year's VAT paid in, for instance, Netherlands.
Okay.
It can differ. The time can differ based on each country in the EU, but basically, yeah, if one and the other have the EU VAT numbers, then they don't pay.
Then it's automatic. Yeah. And also, so when you, when you have a company in Estonia and you send an invoice to a client in the Netherlands, you can put on the invoice reverse VAT, and then you don't have to charge VAT, and your client doesn't have to pay it. Is that correct? When it's a company, not when it's an individual.
Yeah, when it's a company. So on the invoice, it's really important to indicate the VAT number of the Estonian company and the VAT number of the, let's say, Netherlands or Spain company. So the VAT both VAT number proves that you can use the reverse charge.
Yeah, but as Varun just explained, if you buy anything outside of Europe, you will have to pay the VAT. So there's no way you can get a VAT-free invoice. Correct?
Well, I don't know. Does Curacao have
the US? For example, the US. If you buy something in the US, then you're gonna have to pay the VAT. There's no way.
Have to pay the VAT. Yeah. Then probably there isn't any way to claim it back.
Yeah, but in the US, they anyway have a different system. So in the US, even if you're living in the US, you still have to pay VAT. That's how it works. Yeah,
okay. So, that's too bad. That's the way it is.
Yeah, and it's an EU level thing, so it's easier.
The other question I remember from last time we spoke is there is like an allowance, a daily allowance when you're traveling. That's €100 per day that you don't have to specify, €50 a day.
It's €50, but that depends on where, like in your case, that could apply because you're constantly traveling, and I guess most of your community is too, so that's fine. But if you're actually based somewhere for a longer period of time and you're considered resident there, then you should follow the laws of that country. So I don't know, even if it's in the US or even if it's in the Netherlands, if that limit, let's say a dearness allowance or travel allowance or per diem, depends on terminology used. If it's even €75 in that country, then you can do that.
Yeah, but for example, if you're traveling all the time like I do, then this €50 per day could cover your food expenses. So you don't have this thing of, the invoices, is it allowed or not? And then you claim your Airbnb or your hotel and your ticket, and then you have the €50 a day for food and other small expenses that you don't have to do the bookkeeping for, which is also quite nice that you don't.
Exactly, and that's the reason that the €50 dearness, the travel allowance exists, because it's supposed to cover all other expenses outside of lodging and travel. So, so
what if you're traveling full time? Then theoretically you could take €50 per day, which is €1,500 per month. No, That's not the way it works?
No, that's not how it works. Kristiina will explain how it works.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way because daily allowance is meant for business trips, meaning that you start from point A, your business trip, you go somewhere, you stay there a couple of weeks, couple of months, and then you return to the point A. If
you don't have a point A?
Yeah, well, then it becomes tricky because the daily allowance 50 euros is not it's not extended for
not unlimited
unspecified time. 50 euros is for the first 14 days or 15 days, if I remember correctly, and after that it's 25 euros, and you can only use it up for until a certain time. If I'm not mistaken, it was a month or two or something like that. Because if you already reside somewhere else, then there might be a question that you have to change your personal tax residency, and perhaps you should get paid according to that. Whatever
but
the level.
But let's say that people who are traveling all the time should use it wisely. So, for example, I'm in Curacao for a month. I have a writing retreat of a week, so I can claim maybe 2 weeks of this travel allowance. And then the other 2 weeks I say are my private time, for example. And then I go to the next location, and then I take another week or 2 weeks. So not to raise any questions, but this 2 weeks, let's say 750 euros, I can take out of my company account, and I don't have to specify. So that's in fact extra income for me. That's non-taxable, that I use for food.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's kind of like a salary addition payment.
Yeah.
So,
for the travel expenses that you have.
Yeah. So but keep in mind that all these accounting rules have been set when they think about Estonia. So everything is all according to Estonian regulations, and keeping in mind that this is Estonian company, Estonian persons, and so on. So in some cases, the 50 euro daily allowance might not work even because if you start the business trip from some other country, like Varun mentioned, the other countries' accounting rules may apply. So
it's just something that I want to mention that I think is very interesting from the Estonian accounting point of view, that anybody who sets up a company in Estonia should discuss this with their bookkeeper to see what is possible. And if the bookkeeper says 5 days or 10 days or 50 euro or 25 euro per day, but it's an option that doesn't exist in other countries. So it's interesting to explore that.
So just mentioning, all of this sometimes may sound very detailed and, microscopic details. And that's the reason that you have a service provider, an accountant who can give you all that information. So anytime you have a question, you just write to your accountant. It could be at one office, and you just ask them the question. They'll give you the answer, or have a Skype call, and it's really easy to figure out.
And that's perfect. And that's also why we're so happy that Kristiina is joining us as well. And I keep switching from very detailed and then the bigger picture. So let's get back to the bigger picture. So I have 100,000 euro in my account. I send invoices to clients. I have some business expenses that I pay from that company money. I still haven't paid any tax, but of course I have to pay myself a salary. And I can choose a very high salary, and then the country where I'm a tax resident. It doesn't have to mean that I'm actually living there. For example, as a Dutch resident, if I'm not paying tax anywhere else, the Dutch tax is gonna tax me. If I'm registered in Spain, the Spanish tax is going to tax me. And of course, the higher your salary is, the more tax you have to pay. So it's smart to keep your salary as low as possible. So is there a minimum salary that you have to pay yourself? Otherwise, people might say, I'm not going to pay myself a salary, or maybe 500 euros a month. What is a regular or minimum salary you have to pay yourself?
So in Estonia, well, when somebody has an Estonian company, first of all, there's no obligation to pay salary. So for the starting business, it's really convenient that you can work for the company, so to speak, start the business, run the business, but you don't have to take any money out of that, because probably in the first months you don't have any income, so you don't want to generate the costs already that you might not be able to keep. And second, in Estonia, we do have minimum salary. It's about 500, 600 euros. They changed it. So by heart, I don't know exactly what it was, but perhaps
not a lot.
40 euros or something like that. And this is gross amount. But the person can work for the company, not full-time, only part-time. So there are options to actually kind of minimize it even more, like saying I'm doing work 50% of the time. That's why instead of this 540 euros as a gross salary, I have half of that.
That's already very little. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is the salary you pay yourself, that's up to you. But you have to pay tax, not in Estonia, but in the country of fiscal residence.
Yes.
And maybe you're registered in a country that charges you 80%, maybe it's 10%. So it's up to you what your salary is, and the rest of your money stays in your company. If you take money out of the company, you pay Estonian tax, which is 20 or 25%? 20%. And so, which is not a lot. And if you leave it in the company, you don't pay anything and you just use it to cover your expenses. And this is, if I get it right, this is what I like so much about the system. It's straightforward. It's always the same tax percentage. It's always 20%. Of course, there are some rules about expenses, but it's very straightforward and very logical. And it's very interesting for people who travel a lot with small businesses who want to use, you know, the money they make with their company to cover their expenses and who don't need a lot of money to live on, which means they also don't have to pay a lot of tax. So you have to pay yourself a salary to show the country where you're a resident that you do have a salary and that you do pay tax on that. So you fit within the system. They all like that. You fit in the system. You receive a salary, you pay tax. And then what your company does is up to Estonia. So if your company invests in a seminar where you learn something new, if your company invests in a virtual assistant that you pay to help you out, if your company invests in making you travel all over the world to give conferences, whatever, that's up to you and your company.
Yes, absolutely. And that's actually one of the arguments that I always made, is that if, let's say, as a freelancer, you're earning 5,000 euros a month, and wherever you are, maybe you're living in Bali, and you only need 1,000 or 1,500 euros to live a good life, then why should you have to pay tax on the entire 5,000 in Indonesia? Because the taxation there is pretty crazy. Yeah. And that's the whole point. Like, have your company, which is actually the, you know, sales agency or front, claim expenses under that, you know, do a lot of other savings, save time, and get access to better business banking solutions. And at the same time, pay yourself a salary of 1,500, or maybe you don't even need that because, you know, you're traveling and you're doing other things, so you're able to manage. And at the end of the year, just pay yourself a dividend and pay 20% tax on that.
Yeah. And then you have some extra money. Now the big question is, because we're getting to the end of this call, what does it cost to set up a company in Estonia? I've heard different amounts. Some people think it's very expensive. I remember that it's very, very doable. Kristiina, can you give us an impression, because you do this every day with different clients? What are we looking at?
So the first step of setting up the Estonian company is to actually get the e-Residency card. And the state fee of that is 120 euros. But the link that we already shared with Varun as well is the package, which includes the e-Residency card, state fee, company formation for up to 2 founders and board members, and also the contact person at virtual office. So this whole
you need a virtual office and a contact person.
Yeah, so you do need it when you don't live in Estonia. Then there has to be a contact person who can accept correspondence from the government. So the contact person is not the representative of the company; it just acts like the intermediator.
Mailbox or.
Yeah, exactly. And so this whole package is 760 euros plus VAT, and VAT in Estonia is 20%. So it's relatively small or low amount when we compare with company registrations in other EU countries. And the other thing is we do have the share capital contribution as well. The founders can state what is the share capital. The minimum is 2,500 euros, but they can also put 10,000 or whichever amount they need. But they don't need to pay.
What does that mean?
The share capital. So it's the founder's contribution to start the company. So it's kind of like
the money you put in your company.
The money you put into the company's account, and which you can later on use for company's business expenses, because the business code kind of like assumes that in order to do business you have to have some initial down payment made by the owners and the founders.
But it's your money. It stays yours. You just have to put it into
company's money. First it's the founders' money, and when you have a transfer to the company, then it's company's money. Yes. But you can use it for all the business purposes, pay invoices, buy plane tickets, and so on. So it's still something that you don't have to keep separate as a deposit, but you can use it.
Basically, it's something that helps you establish that your company has enough cash flows. So before you can start paying dividends, you have to have a minimum level of 2,500, and it needs to be declared that yes, you have reached this level of 2,500 euros.
Logical. It's logical, and it's not a big amount.
But you can start your company with zero capital. You don't need to do this unless you're paying out a dividend. That's the important.
So for under 1,000 euros, 760 euro plus 20% VAT, you can start your company in Estonia and have like a local office mailing address.
For 1 year, for the first year.
For 1 year. And then every year, I assume there's going to be some extra expenses for registration or accountants or whatever. What are those expenses more or less per year for a very simple, straightforward company?
So when the company has been set up, then the next, let's say the year has passed, very many companies, if they don't have the Estonian VAT number and they don't have employees in Estonia, they actually don't need the monthly accounting. So what many of our clients do, they do the accounting only once per year for the annual report. So the annual report or the annual accounts is something that every company has to do in Estonia, but in certain setups, they can do it only, they can do only accounting once a year. So it's really, it again helps you to keep low the costs, and you don't have to worry that are my declarations submitted or not. So if you speak about really simple and doing the accounting only for the annual report, then the annual costs are the annual report plus the contact person address service. So we are speaking something, the maintenance costs something around 500 euros plus VAT.
Okay.
If we are speaking that there is also accounting needed, then the maintenance costs are about 1,300 euros, 1,500
How much is it per month?
Depending on how fast the company grows, how many transactions, how much business there is.
But the accounting is also paid on a monthly basis, right?
If they need the monthly accounting, then it is paid on monthly basis. If they don't need, then they can pay for completing the year's accounting just before the annual report. So we bundle them together, annual report plus accounting for those clients.
So if I understand correctly, if I can, sorry?
I just want to add something here, because for me, even though I don't have that many expenses and I'm quite similar to the people that are there, I still have a monthly accounting package, because it makes it easier for me first to ask my accountant constantly questions about how everything works. And the second reason is it just makes, because at the end of the year, if I'm doing accounting on a monthly basis, the stuff that needs to be declared is already prepared. So I don't have to, like, at the end of the year struggle with that, because I did that once and it was, I had too many expenses and I had to literally like go month by month for the whole year. It took me almost 2 weeks of my own time.
Yeah, it's good for accountability, literally, to do it monthly. And can you give us an idea, Varun, how much are you paying your accountant more or less on a yearly basis for this monthly accounting?
I pay approximately 60 odd euros a month, including VAT. But the VAT part comes back to my company already because it's being invoiced to my company. So I pay like 50 plus euros. How much is it, Kristiina? I don't remember offhand. Monthly accounting, like simple for digital nomad or single.
The minimum is 65 plus VAT.
Yeah, so that's really low. For just to compare, I paid about 6 years ago, I paid, I think, $900 or $1,500 to set up my company in the British Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
And there is no accounting or anything because I don't have to pay taxes, so I don't have to do any accounting. Officially, I have to provide an annual report, but I never do it, basically. So there's no activity, nothing, and still I have to pay like $1,200 a year just to maintain the registration. They don't answer my questions. Every year it's a struggle to pay. You know, I ask for if I can pay by credit card, and then I get like a reminder, and only after 4 emails they answer my very simple question. So not a good customer service experience. There's no activity at all, which is also, of course, fine for me. But it's more expensive than having this company in Estonia with an accountant and bookkeeping and a question and answer support.
And the biggest thing is it's not offshore.
True. So if I would have the choice now, I would probably choose Estonia. And I'm even considering maybe at some point I need to switch. But I like easy. So for now, I'll just keep it the way it is so I don't have to change anything. But I'm very, very happy with this option and with these very, very detailed answers to our questions, Kristiina and Varun, like how much is this? How much is this? Can I deduct this? And I see in the chat, that's exactly also what people want to know. So we're already convinced of the fact that you can have an international company and that it's very useful and that it's very modern and very easy. And now we just want to know the nitty gritty because especially, you know, the accounting and tax is very complicated in the Netherlands, what most people have experience with. And the answers you gave, of course, there are some rules, but we can learn the rules and it's very straightforward and very simple. And it's meant to provide a service instead of meaning to make life more difficult or to, you know, not give you insight and transparency.
I would say that first of all, taxes are case sensitive as well. So every time when you hear about how your friend has solved the case, then be wary and do your own homework and research as well. But yeah, I would say as well that Estonia is solution oriented. And I feel that Estonia in general as well is searching for ways to be more efficient. We have to be. We are such a small country. We have only 1.3 million people here. So we have to attract talent to Estonia. And e-Residency is a good way to actually get more residents as well. So
and those people together with their modern businesses and like an incubator, that's also something I really like.
True.
Now, I wouldn't be Dutch if I had asked you, can you do something for the people watching? So normally if people approach you through the website, you give them this package deal and there's a lot of frequently asked questions and information and tutorials on the website. But we've noticed that people want to just get a personal check, like what is my situation? What is my company situation? Can you help me? Is there something you can do for people that I refer to you that want to explore the possibility of setting up a company in Estonia?
Yes, definitely. So we have the discount option and we also have a consultation option as well. So it depends what they are after. Are they after tax consultation? And we can provide.
Yeah, I think we discussed the different cases, and what I notice is people want a good deal, but I think your offer is already a good deal, and I think what values more is the consultation. So if people that come through me, and you've put the link already in the chat, and I will put it in the email with the replay that I send to everybody. If you present this link to Kristiina or to one office, they will offer you a consultation And what is it? Is it a video call? Is it an email consultation? What can you expect?
It can be a Skype call, for instance. It can be also consultation over email. So we kind of try to be flexible and do it as it's more convenient for the client. So it's all about agreeing what they need. First of all, what we need is to get your ideas, get your questions, description of what do you plan to do, what are your concerns, why you haven't done it yet, what are the pain points, so to speak. And from there, we work on to see whether there's a tax consultation needed, whether there is some procedural, e-Residency application side, and so on.
And what is important for you to know is where somebody is a tax resident or what their registration status is, right? So if you have a specific country where you're registered either as a resident or as a tax resident, then that's one fixed point. If you don't have that, like I do, then you need to know, like, where do you spend a lot of time, where are your clients? So prepare this type of information when you contact one office, because then it will make it easier for you to help them, and you can make this consultation call or session more effective.
That's true.
Anything else, Varun? Do you have any tips if people approach one office with questions, or if people have to decide, is this for me? Do you have some examples of companies that don't work, for example, or situations that don't work, or that questions that you must ask?
Well, I mean, I would say firstly, put together a basic business plan. What do you want to do? Like your question about, importing products from the US and Canada, bringing them into Europe, that was already specific enough to have a meaningful discussion. I would always suggest that when you're interacting with the service provider, you can always ask to set up a call so that everything is answered during the call. But during that call, when you actually send them an email, then try to include as many details as you think would be relevant. At the same time, feel free to explore a little bit also. There's many articles about e-Residency and how people are using it. So if you just, let's imagine you're based in the Netherlands, you write e-Residency Dutch or e-Residency Netherlands, you can start reading about it and how it could be relevant for Dutch e-residents, because there are many Dutch e-residents already, as an example.
Oh, great. So there's a whole database of information. And that's also what I understood from Kristiina, that the frequently asked questions database is quite large and well maintained. So if you ask a question that hasn't been asked yet, it will be added to the database. And that's also one of the services you provide, like this ongoing support and maintenance of this database. So the knowledge grows and more options become available.
Yeah, that's true. So the service provider is your friend who helps you to, well, one of his slogan is making business simple. So as you mentioned as well, we take care of the back office stuff, so the boring stuff, and you can focus on your main business idea, grow the business. And we are happy to see when our clients grow, because this means how we grow as well. And we are ready to start from the very beginning, and we are eager to see that our clients grow to be big companies eventually.
Yeah, that's a good view. One more question from somebody, if they can get business insurance in Estonia as well. So if you have a business as a coach, a health coach, giving advice to people, usually business insurance is very expensive. Do you have any experience with that in Estonia?
Yeah, so there are two things with the insurance. One is the healthcare insurance, and this probably won't be applicable in Estonia if the person isn't Estonian resident. Right. And the second, but for that, people use safety rings and other solutions. And the other is business insurance, that you want to ensure that if something goes wrong with your business. We do have several providers, but now it needs to be more specific, like what do you want to insure. But yes, it's true that it might be at first, in the beginning, it might be too expensive to take this on.
Yeah, but the service provider can give advice on that. For example, in the free consultation call, or when you're setting up your company to put
Yeah,
you
we can say that we can let you know where to turn to, because there are several companies, and just to give the websites of those companies.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Well, we've come to the end of a very, very interesting hour. Thank you very much, Varun and Kristiina, for your time and your expertise and your information. I know we went very much into detail, but that's exactly the type of things we need to know. What I will do is I will send this recording to everybody in this program, and including the link that you gave me, so people, if they contact you through that link, they will get a free consultation, personal information on their situation, whether Estonia is the right place for them to set up a company, and if the answer is yes, what they should do, how to do it, what their benefits are, contacts with other service providers, insurance, accounting. So basically a one-stop shop for your Estonian adventure. So I hope you're going to get lots of questions, because it means that a lot of people will make the move. They've been doing research for years, and finally, you know, this seems like the perfect solution. So I really hope to put you together with some of our digital nomads, and we'll stay in touch, and hopefully we'll see each other one day in Estonia.
Yes.
Sounds good. And thanks a lot for
Thank you
organizing.
Very much.
Bye.
Nice meeting
Bye.
everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.